What is going on, everybody? It is your boy, Steve. Back at it with another review. And yesterday I was able to check out The Accountant 2 in theaters. But before we get into actual beginning of the review itself, guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because the more is absolutely free. Number 2, also maybe I'll put the YouTube algorithm and recommend the video to more people. Maybe they could join. Yeah. And do feel free to comment your thoughts on The Accountant 2 down below. As well, I did post my full-length review of the first film yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, it is on playlist on my YouTube channel for this review series. But with that being said, guys, before we get into let's give a quick plot synopsis of the movie, shall we? So, transition and choose.
Forensic accountant Christian Wolf teams up with his estranged but highly lethal brother to track down mysterious assassins.
Alright, so going into The Accountant 2, I never watched the first film until Wednesday. That was the first time I saw that movie. And spoilers for my review of the first film, but I thought that was really good, and I don't really understand why he has a 53% Rotten Tomatoes score. But even before I saw the first film, and from the trailers, this generally looked fun. I like Ben Affleck and I like Jon Bernthal, so seeing them two together, I thought was could be a very good pairing. And I liked the stuff we got with the trailers, with it being a road trip movie. So that definitely hooked my attention, and after I saw the first film, I got even more excited for this one to explore it. So, with that being said, let's just get into the actual review itself, you guys. So, easily the best thing about this movie, and what I predicted would be the best thing about this movie, is the chemistry between Jon Bernthal and Ben Affleck, which both of them are still have great characters. As I mentioned in the last review, I thought Ben Affleck's character from the last film, Christian Wolf, was a really, really good character, and that continues over here, but this time around, you get to explore more of Braxton, which is played by Jon Bernthal, and you really get the feel this time around with their chemistry, because, spoiler alert for the first film, but they find out they're brothers at the end. And this time you actually get to explore their brotherly chemistry with one another. So, I thoroughly enjoyed that part of the film. Another thing, just like the first film, that I thought was good is the action sequences. And don't get me wrong, it's still just like the first film where there's not a whole lot of action, but the action that you do get, and there is a little bit more compared to the first film here, I will say. But the action you do get in here is generally great, and the most action you do get is in the final act of the movie, and I think for the most part it all looks really, really good. So, yeah. Another thing in here is the opening scene, which is the setup of the film, where you eventually get Jon Bernthal and Christian Wolf Braxton and Christian meeting each other in person, with them trying to find this killer that killed someone. So I thought that was a really good opening scene compared to the first film. So yeah. Another thing in here is the entertainment value. I think this one's a little more entertaining compared to the first one, where this one's a little, well, why don't we just talk about it right now? The comedy. This movie is way more funnier than the first film, where you have this banter back and forth between these two characters, and then you also have some fun moments, particularly one bar scene that I thought was the highlight of the movie for me. I really enjoyed that scene. It also takes some of that awkward humor that worked in the first film with Ben Affleck's character, and it does it yet again in here. And I thought it truly worked with the film, and was easily like the second best thing about this film, besides the chemistry between Jon Bernthal and Ben Affleck. Another thing in here is the tonal shift compared to the first film. People are definitely going to be mixed on this one, I think, because the first one is very much more dark and a little bit more serious, with a little humor thrown in here. This one is more comedic and more fun compared to the first film, I would say, which most people might not enjoy that tonal shift, but for me, I thought it personally worked. I liked the direction they took this time around, And I honestly hope they keep it going with the third film if they make a third film, which I hope they do, because this was a very fun film. Another hot take of mine probably is the story and more tighter script. I think this one has a better story and more tighter script with the road trip aspect of the story. Now, don't get me wrong, it is a story you have seen before in films many times before, but I think it is one of the easily better versions of that in here. So thoroughly enjoyed that. Another thing in here is the further world building compared to the first film, where you really get introduced to other things throughout this world, where you all get introduced to these smart kids at the school that hack into stuff, and I thought that was a little interesting. Maybe we could do like a spin-off with them in a TV show form or something like that. And the final positive thing I have to say in here is Gavin O'Connor as director. He delivers yet again. He directed the first film, and he also directed Warrior, one of my favorite movies of all time, and one of the most underrated movies of all time. Truly think that's a great film, and I truly think he sticks out as a director here yet again. Now, that is the good done. Now let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. And the first mixed aspect of the film I have is the villains. Now, certainly they are villains that you
definitely want to see lose and have their comeuppance at the end of the film, but the problem with them is they don't have anything stand out about them to remember them by, to make them actually good villains. They're just evil villains you want to see lose instead of being actually compelling villains.
Another mixed thing that probably people are gonna bring up about is the pacing of the movie. Personally, the pacing worked for me. For the most part, I do admit there's like some parts where it gets slow, but then it immediately picks back up yet again. It's not a very fast-moving movie, but the pacing definitely works for me, but it might not work for others. And there's that. Also, the final mixed aspect I have in here is the character of Mary Beth Medina. And so she's a police officer that is trying to solve the crime of the person that got murdered and who did it. And, she got a little bit annoying for me, where she very much plays that character that it goes like, "What are you doing? You're going above the law here, folks," talking to Jon Bernthal and Ben Affleck's character. But when you do it once, it's fine, but she does it a couple of times throughout the film, which I found a little bit grating. But there is a key scene that happens later on in the film, no spoilers here, but that I generally thought was tense and a good moment for her character. So, I did enjoy that. Now, let's move on to the bad, which I do only have like 3 or 2. So, here's the little caveat. The first bad I have in here is the reveal with the character of Annalise, or is it Annals? I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's, I can't tell if it's on an L or an I. I apologize. But she's a new character introduced in here. We see glimpses of her in the trailer, where they have this reveal with her that I found very, very obvious, and they don't really, well, we'll bring it up now. It feels as if it's setting up something to happen at the end of this film, and it doesn't really do that. It very much kind of maybe leaves the door open for the third film that possibly could happen, with a little resolvement with her character, but the reveal of her character, I just went, yeah, that's kind of a little obvious. I thought she was part of that. And then the final bad in here I have is, just like the first film, I do wish there was still a little bit more actions. Again, you still do get action in here, but
it is very limited, and usually for action sequels, they usually go bigger and bolder with the action. However, they don't really do that here. They use pretty much the same amount as the first film.
But other than that, really, I honestly enjoyed this more than the first film. So with that being said, let's bring out the toxic meter. And I am going to actually give this not toxic goodness and not toxic an A-. And I thought this was better than the first film. I still really like and appreciate the first film, but this is genuinely more my thing with that entertaining action, sort of. But as I said before, that is just my thoughts on The Accountant 2. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the film down below. And stay tuned tomorrow because I will be doing a battle between these two behemoths to determine which one is better in a certain amount of categories. But with that being said, guys, I'll see y'all next one, everybody. Peace.